And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret.
What secret could Trump be referring to? Former President Donald Trump held a massive and historic rally at Madison Square Garden in New York, in the closing stretch right before the election. And he teased something very interesting. We'll discuss that in a second. But first, this rally was extremely humiliating for the Democrats and their media outlets. They went from saying Trump couldn't fill a small venue to saying his sold-out Madison Square Garden rally is intended to reenact the 1939 Nazi rally because that was also held at Madison Square Garden.
Now, one other thing that you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it.
Donald Trump has descended into madness over the last few weeks. And I think some of you don't miss on this. Go do your Google on this. Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
So this is extremely humiliating for the Democrats. Their logic is that any event held at Madison Square Garden is by definition a Nazi rally. Well, I guess Hillary and Bill Clinton are also Nazis, since Bill Clinton accepted the Democrat Party nomination at Madison Square Garden in 1992.
I really love New York. Ohio cast 144 votes for the next president of the United States.
Oh yeah, and they showed their white supremacist underbelly again attending a U2 concert there a couple years ago. It would really be a shame if someone found a photo of Hillary Clinton kissing a white supremacist on the mouth. Oh wait, wow, that would really suck if she'd called a Nazi her friend and mentor. Oh wait, that's longtime Democrat Senator Robert Byrd, organizer and member of the KKK. So the Democrats' closing pitch to America right before the election is to call over half the country Nazis, and anyone who attends an event at Madison Square Garden essentially an enemy of the state, while accusing Trump of attacking democracy. They even went so far as to project this straight up lie onto Madison Square Garden during the event. Briefly, for those who don't know, the latest hoax the Democrats are running with of a sea of hoaxes. My God, I can't even keep up with how many hoaxes these people push. They have former General John Kelly, who served with President Trump as his chief of staff but was fired. He got on the wrong side of President Trump, and 4 years after leaving the White House decided to accuse Trump suddenly of praising Hitler. He just suddenly recalled this shocking revelation less than 2 weeks before an election. But don't worry, there's no connection. MSDNC played this unbelievable clip during the Trump MSG event, which honestly should get MSDNC taken off the air for how utterly disgusting it is. See for yourself.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally, a rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms. Most of his clothing was torn from his body. Later, he was booked for disorderly conduct. Now, against that backdrop of history, Donald Trump, the man who has threatened to use the military against opponents he calls enemies from within, who has threatened to use the troops to quell what he says are lawless cities and to use those troops to carry out mass deportations of immigrants, is once again turning Madison Square Garden into a staging ground for extremism.
All of this is particularly rich considering Trump has a lot of Jewish support. There are a lot of Jewish attendees. There's an actual Holocaust Holocaust survivor who was there at the event defending Trump. Trump's daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren are Orthodox Jews. There is not an iota, there is not a modicum of anti-Semitic sentiment at this event. It had literally nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It featured Black Americans.
Our nation has had a complex history with racism and sexism. And we can all agree that we got to do a little work there. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about is our similarities that unite us. I got to tell you another secret, though. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, I wouldn't be standing here today. So I want to thank President Donald Trump.
It featured women of color like Tulsi Gabbard. It featured Hindus like Vivek Ramaswamy.
Donald Trump is actually the president who will unite this country, actually. And we don't talk about that enough. America First includes all Americans, regardless of their race, their gender, or their sexual orientation. Our message to Black Americans tonight is this: we want you. What we want for every American: safe neighborhoods, good jobs, clean streets, a country where you are judged based on the content of your character, not the color of your skin or your political beliefs. That's the America we know. Our message to gay Americans tonight is this: you're free to marry who you want, if you want, without the government standing in your way. But that doesn't mean that boys get to compete with girls in girls' sports, or you do genital mutilation and chemical castration on our children.
The rally was as diverse as New York City itself. And this New Yorker had strong words for the Democrats after the rally.
I just got back from Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. I'm a Jewish New York Republican, and I have seen the mainstream media calling this a Nazi rally. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There were so many Jews there, just like myself. There was Israeli flags, and nearly every single speaker talked about their commitment to upholding the relationship between U.S. and Israel. Not to mention all the Latinos for Trump, gays for Trump, and nearly every other group that would have never been allowed in if this was actually a Nazi rally. Kamala Harris could literally bring Adolf Hitler on her stage, and the mainstream media still wouldn't call it a Nazi rally. Their lies are futile. Trump is winning this election in 9 days. Make sure you get out, vote early, and vote for Donald Trump.
This is an insanely desperate lie that no one actually believes. A lot of the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas protesters on the US activist left today are fully aware that Trump is an ardent ally to Israel. And it's because the Democrats are freaking out about the election and are trying to mobilize at least their base. This is the final pitch that Democrats are making before November 5th. Trump is Hitler, Orange Man bad. We've heard it all before, but this is after 2 assassination attempts, which were covered up by the current Democratic administration, by the way, by the current FBI and Secret Service. Do they think no one notices? Anyway, Kamala Harris does not regret her rhetoric at all, even if it's dangerous.
Mitch McConnell and Speaker Mike Johnson put out a statement comparing rhetoric that you have been using, comparing it to the man who's accused of an attempted assassination on your opponent, Donald Trump. Do you take their criticism seriously?
Well, listen, we all must speak out against any form of political violence, and I'm very clear about that. No one should be the subject of violence, much less political violence. But the American people deserve to be presented with facts and the truth. And the fact and the truth is that some of the people closest to Donald Trump when he was president, generals, including most recently John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, have been very clear about the danger and the threat that Donald Trump poses to America.
A 4-star Marine general could never lie for political purposes, just like 51 higher-ups in the intelligence community could never lie for political purposes right before an election, right? This Michigan voter definitely doesn't buy it.
I've heard so much about Trump being angry and he's a fascist and a dictator, but problem is when I listen to him, I don't hear any of that.
You and me both. It's almost like they're making it up. And you know Democrats must be fuming that voters are not buying it. This is what Pennsylvania swing state voters, undecided voters, and arguably the most important swing state of the election, had to say about the Trump is Hitler fascism hoax.
In the last few days, the vice president has started to talk about Donald Trump as a fascist, as someone who's spoken approvingly of Hitler. Raise your hand if you've heard about those comments. Okay. What do folks think? Is that something that's persuasive to you? Is that something that you'll factor into your vote? Linda?
To me, it's horrible that she's saying that about him. If he was saying that about her, everybody would be up in arms. I just don't think that's right.
What other folks think about what the vice president's saying based on accounts of people who've worked with the President Trump? What do folks think about her making those charges and those characterizations?
She obviously thinks it's going to help her. I don't think it does at all. I don't know why, if it was Kelly who heard the president say that, I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but I think that he had a responsibility to resign the day that was said, if that's true.
Real quick, that's a very important point that this guy is making. If John Kelly had heard Trump praising Hitler, why wouldn't he immediately resign? He's kind of indicting himself.
I find that the Democrats and the left just keep going straight to Hitler all of the time with everything. Like it, and if it's not the left pushing Hitler, it's the right pushing Stalin. So it's like we're fighting World War II every single day for every single election. So it's so exhausting. I think it just detracts from, it pushes me away from their position, and it's so hyperbolic that it makes it impossible to have good discussion.
Does anybody think it's valuable or something you want to hear from the vice president? Anybody? Raise your hand if you think this is something that's important for her to be talking about. Anybody? Okay.
Anybody? Bueller? So you have all this happening in the background. You have the Democrats pushing this Hitler hoax again, despite 2 assassination attempts. You have Trump, who had the audacity to campaign in a deep blue city, in a deep blue state, further enraging them, when Hulk Hogan even weighed in on Hitlergate.
The energy of all these Trumpomaniacs is the most powerful force in the universe. You know something, Trump maniacs? I don't see no stinking Nazis in here. I don't see no stinking domestic terrorists in here. The only thing I see in here are a bunch of hard-working men and women that are real Americans, brother.
So a ton of people spoke during this rally: free speech advocates, entertainers, up-and-coming political stars, edgy but hilarious comedians like Tony Hinchcliffe. Maybe I'll make another video on that controversy. And then Trump delivered a signature, hilarious but epic speech about saving America from inflation, crime, and general despair. And then he let something very interesting slip.
We got to get the senators elected because we can take the Senate pretty easily. And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with the House, right? Our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret. We'll tell you what it is when the race is over.
So he's pointing to Matt Gaetz. He and I have a secret. The Republicans currently control the House under Speaker Mike Johnson, but Republicans are also hopeful that they might take back the Senate in addition to the White House, which might present an opportunity to enable historic reforms pushed by Trump, but also RFK and others. People who see themselves fighting a pro-war, deep state establishment cabal of elites. Time will tell what he means by secret. Our secret. And his referencing Matt Gaetz, a congressman in Florida, might be another clue as to get out the vote efforts for congressional races, something to do with the census, the Dominion voting machine codes. Either way, we'll learn a lot after the election, and I can't wait. Remember to follow me on X. I just started a new account. Username is Audrey_receipts. Thank you for all your support, and I'll catch you on the next one.